The movie, set in 1800s Arizona, opens in the modest home of a struggling rancher named Dan Evans. One night, as the family is about to sleep, Dan's eldest son, William, hears noises outside and alerts his father. But Dan is already awake and listening. Peering through the window, he spots a group of thugs setting fire to his barn. Dan rushes out to confront them, but is struck down with a rifle, his prosthetic leg falling off in the process. As he struggles to put it back on, one of the men warns him that he has 1 week to pay his debt, or they'll return to burn down the house next time. Immediately, William dashes into the burning barn to free the horses, with Dan following close behind. When William tries to save the last sack of feed, Dan yells for him to leave it as the flames intensify. Moments later, the barn collapses. Furious, William grabs a rifle and aims at the fleeing men, but Dan stops him, insisting he'll handle it, though William clearly doubts it.
I'll take care of this.
No, you won't.
By morning, Dan pockets his Medal of Honor, a keepsake from his Civil War service, before urging William to help round up the cattle that scattered during the fire. His wife, Alice, questions why he hasn't paid their creditor, Hollander, the banker they owe money to. Dan explains that he used the money to buy necessities and medicine for their sick younger son, Mark. Alice is upset that he made the decision without consulting her, and fears Hollander might sell their land to the railroad company. Little Mark suggests his father report the attack to the town marshal, but Dan dismisses the idea, saying the marshal can't help them.
Maybe we should just shoot him like Will says.
Instead, he assures his family that once they retrieve the herd, he'll go into town, settle things with Hollander, and even make him pay for a new barn. Elsewhere, a notorious outlaw named Ben Wade waits with his gang to rob a stagecoach carrying money for the railroad in the town of Bisbee. His right-hand man, Charlie Prince, briefs Wade on the weapons the guards are likely to have.
Pinks on top, double shotguns, and a Gatling.
And what to expect during the ambush. Meanwhile, Dan Evans and his sons are nearby, tracking their scattered cattle.
Should've let me save the feed. You gonna hawk that?
Someday, William. You walk in my shoes, you might understand.
I ain't ever walking in your shoes.
Soon, the heavily guarded stagecoach appears, escorted by a group of Pinkertons. As soon as Wade spots it, he signals his men. They position their sniper and charge toward the wagon on horseback. The Pinkertons quickly respond, loading their weapons, and a fierce gunfight erupts. The wagon's Gatling gun opens fire, cutting down several of Wade's men, but the sniper takes out one of the gunners, drawing the attention of the rest. After a brutal exchange, the gang finally manages to kill the last Gatling gun operator, though the Pinkertons keep fighting from inside the coach. Watching from a distance, Wade notices Dan's herd grazing nearby. He fires a shot into the air, spooking the cattle and driving them across the road. The stagecoach can't stop in time and crashes into the herd. Charlie Prince quickly kills 2 of the surviving guards. The wounded Pinkerton leader, Byron McElroy, tries to reach his gun, but Prince stops him and shoots him in the stomach. Wade walks up to McElroy and mocks him for spending so much money protecting the coach instead of just letting him take the cash.
Probably cheaper just to let me rob the damn thing.
McElroy tells him to finish the job, but Wade refuses.
I ain't gonna kill you. Not like this.
Saying he'll spare him, even after McElroy warns he'll regret it. The gang rigs the stagecoach with explosives and blows the door open. One of Wade's men, Tommy, goes inside to retrieve the strongbox, unaware that a Pinkerton agent inside is only pretending to be dead. As the gang breaks open the box and starts transferring the cash into their bags, Dan Evans and his sons arrive nearby and witness everything. Suddenly, the supposedly dead Pinkerton grabs Tommy and holds a gun to his head, threatening to kill him unless the gang drops the money. In an instant, Wade draws his gun and shoots both the Pinkerton and Tommy dead. He calmly remarks that Tommy made a fatal mistake by not realizing the Pinkerton was still alive. From a distance, young William watches in awe at how fast Wade is with a gun.
He's fast.
Before Dan and his sons can slip away, Wade and his men spot them and ride over. Dan insists they just want their cattle back and mean no harm. Wade assures him they'll get their herd, but says he's taking their horses so they can't alert anyone about the robbery. He promises to leave the horses tied up along the road to Bisbee so they can retrieve them later.
Find them on the road to Bisbee. Boys?
In Bisbee, the railroad representative, Butterfield, grows anxious as the stagecoach is running late.
They're probably just running late.
Pinkertons don't run late. That's why they're paid $18 a day.
Just then, Wade's men ride into town. Charlie Prince, wearing a small disguise, walks into the marshal's office and reports that the stagecoach is being robbed by Ben Wade's gang a few miles away.
How did you know it was Wade?
It's been him the last 21 times, Marshal.
I saw a Mexican sharpshooter and an Apache.
Hearing this, the marshal, Butterfield, Butterfield, and a group of men quickly arm themselves and head out to the scene.
Why the hell didn't you do something?
They had a lot of weapons, mister, and they was shooting bullets.
After they leave, Wade and his gang gather at a local saloon. They drink to the men they lost, and to Tommy, whom Wade coldly calls weak and stupid for getting himself killed. Once they've divided the loot, the men prepare to leave. Charlie Prince notices Wade staring at the barmaid and warns him that the Marshal will be back soon. He says they'll wait for him at the border.
You're going across the border. I won't be far. I'll wait for you.
All right, Charlie.
Then rides off. Wade approaches the barmaid, saying she looks familiar and asking if she once worked in another town's saloon. She confirms that she used to be a singer, but moved to Bisbee on a doctor's advice to live in a drier climate after she began coughing.
You look kind of skinny.
I feel skinny.
I don't mind skinny girls, as long as they got green eyes to make up for it. If you got green eyes, that's all right. They don't have to be green.
Meanwhile, Dan and his sons arrive at the scene of the robbery. They find the dead Pinkertons and discover that McElroy is still alive. Dan helps him onto a board and drags him to safety.
You think they stole our horses?
They don't need our shit horses.
Watch your mouth.
Luckily, Wade kept his word. He left the Evans family's horses tied to a tree nearby. Dan tells his sons to take the horses, round up the cattle, and head home, while he takes McElroy to Bisbee for medical help. Moments later, Butterfield, the Marshal, and the others arrive. Seeing McElroy wounded, Butterfield urges them to get him help right away. Dan informs them that Ben Wade went into Bisbee, and they realize they've been tricked. Back in town, Wade sketches the barmaid after spending some time with her. When he spots the Marshal and his men arriving, along with Dan Evans, he quickly tells the woman to escape with him and promises to find her a singing job in Mexico, where he isn't wanted. Butterfield and the men rush Byron McElroy to a veterinarian named Potter for medical help. They lay him on the table, and Potter observes that he's losing a lot of blood. He tells McElroy he'll need to remove the bullet immediately. McElroy grits his teeth and tells him to go ahead, saying it's not the first time he's been shot. After extracting the bullet, Potter notices McElroy looking around at the jars of preserved animal organs and realizes he's just figured out what kind of doctor he really is.
What the kind of doctor are you anyway?
It's nice to have a conversation with the patient for a change.
Outside, Dan decides to confront Hollander. On his way, he spots the Marshal and his men stealthily moving through town, preparing to catch Ben Wade.
What the hell are they looking for?
Ben Wade?
When Dan meets Hollander, he informs him that Wade just robbed the payroll coach and is now in Bisbee. Hearing this, Hollander and his right-hand man Tucker, the same man who led the thugs that burned Dan's barn, grab their guns and decide to join the hunt. Before they leave, Dan accuses Hollander of sending his men to destroy his barn and cut off his water supply. Tucker shoves him to the ground, and Hollander arrogantly tells him he can do whatever he wants until the debt is paid.
Before water touches your land, it resides and flows on mine, and as such I can do with it as a please.
Frustrated, Dan even offers up his Medal of Honor and begs for more time, but Hollander mocks him, saying his land will soon belong to the railroad.
Railroad's coming, Dan. Your land's worth more with you off.
Furious, Dan storms into the saloon with his gun drawn, ready to confront Hollander. Instead, he finds Ben Wade coming down the stairs with the barmaid. Wade approaches and asks why Dan's in town since he already got his herd and horses back. Dan explains that he lost 2 cattle in the chaos.
But you killed 2 of my herd.
So Wade casually pays him for the loss, and even adds a little extra for his trouble. Dan notices that lawmen are closing in on Wade, so he tries to stall him by demanding more money for the time his sons wasted.
You took up my boy's time, too. You're right. I did. Anything else you want to get paid for, Dan?
Give me $5 extra.
And what's that for?
For making me nervous.
Just as Wade begins to question his demand, the Marshal and his men burst in with their guns raised, declaring Wade under arrest. They cuff his hands, and Tucker confiscates his weapon. Tucker suggests they execute him on the spot.
I think we should shoot him right now.
Do that. Everybody in this shit piss little town will be dead by morning.
Butterfield steps forward, explaining that Wade has committed over 20 robberies, totaling more than $400,000. He says Wade will be taken to a federal court and hanged, and that the railroad company will pay whatever it takes to make sure that happens.
And we will pay to make it happen?
He calls for 3 volunteers to escort Wade to prison. Hollander assigns Tucker.
You can have Tucker.
McElroy volunteers despite his injury, and the Marshal insists that Potter come along too.
He goes, Potter's coming.
What? I can't shoot shit.
Dan then steps up, saying he was the best shot in his Civil War regiment and will join them for a $200 fee.
You fight for the North or the South?
North.
We're Southern in name, but Chicago-owned. Fine.
Butterfield agrees, and the team prepares to move Wade out. As they're loading Wade into the wagon, Charlie Prince suddenly rides into town shouting, "This town's gonna burn!" He shoots 2 men before escaping. Watching from a distance, he waits to see what happens next. The escort team loads Wade into the coach and decides to hide out at Dan Evans's ranch. At the Evans ranch, Dan assures his wife that Wade will only be there for one night. On the way, the Marshal's wagon gets stuck, so the men stop to help. Under the guise of freeing the wagon, they secretly swap Wade with one of the Marshal's men, putting a disguise on him and sneaking the real Wade into Dan's house. From a hill nearby, Charlie Prince observes them but doesn't realize the switch has been made. Alice worries aloud about what will happen when Wade's gang catches up to the decoy wagon.
What happens if they catch the wagon?
You saw where his man was. Still gotta go fetch the outfit. Marshal's got a fast rig. They should reach the fort before dawn.
His gang can't do anything in front of the whole 6th Cavalry.
That night, Potter notices Dan's destroyed barn and scolds Tucker.
I hope you're proud of yourself.
Just doing my job, Doc.
Inside, the Evans family sits down for dinner and serves Ben Wade a plate. Wade starts eating immediately, but little Mark reminds him that they say grace first. Alice prays, and then everyone begins to eat. During dinner, Mark proudly tells Wade that his father is such a good shot he could have killed him if he wanted to. Wade starts mocking them, bringing up McElroy's violent past.
He's killed dozens of people, men and women and children, miners, Apache.
I was soul taken and deserve what I got.
Every way of man is right in his own eyes, Byron. The Lord ponders the heart. Proverbs 21.
When Wade starts eating his steak whole, Dan steps in and cuts it for him. Wade keeps asking Dan questions about how he lost his leg and where he fought during the war. Suddenly, a gunshot rings out outside. The men rush to check, but it turns out to be nothing serious. Potter thought he saw something and fired by mistake. Back inside, Wade begins talking to Alice. He asks if she's ever been to San Francisco, telling her he once knew a woman there with the greenest eyes.
Like yours. And I'd stare deep into them and it just changed color in front of me. All the colors of the sea. What'd you say your name was again?
Dan returns, calls Alice aside, and warns her not to speak to Wade again because he's dangerous.
It's not what I expected.
He's dangerous. Dangerous is what he is, Alice.
While loading his gun, she asks why he volunteered for the escort mission and tries to talk him out of it. Dan explains that the $200 will change everything.
6 months from now, everything's gonna be green. Cows are gonna be fat. We might even see the steam from the train coming over the ridge.
Potter interrupts, announcing they'll be leaving in 5 minutes. Alice, frightened, says Wade's gang will come for them, but Dan insists it's a risk he's willing to take, because if he doesn't, they'll lose their home, and he can't let that happen after everything they've endured.
I'm tired, Alice, of watching my boys go hungry. I'm tired of the way that they look at me. I'm tired of the way that you don't. I've been standing on one leg for 3 damn years, waiting for God to do me a favor, and he ain't listening.
Outside, the men prepare to leave with their prisoner. Tucker takes Wade's horse and puts him on another one. Dan says goodbye to his boys, but William begs to come along.
You're 14 years old.
I can ride faster and shoot better than any one of them. The Pinkerton's hurt, Potter's no good. That railroad man's dead. Wait, and that other bastard?
William.
I don't have time to argue. I need you here.
Wade asks where they're headed, but Tucker shuts him up, saying he's just a prisoner and doesn't get to ask questions.
Taking you to contention, putting you on the 310 to Yuma day after tomorrow.
Shouldn't have told him that.
Relax, friend. Now if we get separated, I know where to meet up. I'd like to thank you for your hospitality, ma'am. Hope I can send your husband back all right.
The men soon ride out. Later that evening, Alice gives Mark his medicine. Mark asks if Wade is going to kill their father, and William chimes in.
Ben and Wade don't have to lift a finger. His gang will do it for him.
Alice reassures them that their father will be fine and urges them to sleep. But after she leaves, William packs his things and a gun, then sneaks out the window to follow his father and the men. That night, the group makes camp. Butterfield asks Dan if he was conscripted or volunteered for the army. Dan says it was a bit of both.
What does that mean?
He volunteered for the state guard, but when the federal army ran short on men, they were drafted to protect the capital. That's when he lost his leg. Wade cuts in, asking why Dan is even there, since he seems to be the only one without a real reason. He guesses Dan must be desperate for money and taunts him about his wife.
Well, I know if I was lucky enough to have a wife like Alice, I'd treat her a whole lot better than you do, Dan. I'd feed her better, buy her pretty dresses. Wouldn't make her work so hard. Yeah, I'll bet Alice was a real pretty girl before she married.
Dan finally snaps and lunges at him, warning Wade to keep his wife's name out of his mouth, or he'll cut out his tongue.
I like this side of you, Dan.
Tucker steps in and says it's his turn to stand watch. Tucker won't let Wade sleep. He keeps taunting him with songs and insults, waving Wade's own gun in his face. He says he'll make sure Wade stays awake, since he's the reason Tucker isn't in his bed.
You're gonna hang me in the morning, for the night is done. Hang me in the morning, never see the sun.
Meanwhile, William camps alone in the wilderness, still trying to catch up. In his sleep, Dan hears a wet, gurgling sound. He opens his eyes, only to see Wade stabbing Tucker in the neck over and over with a fork he'd hidden at his home. McElroy tackles him and beats him viciously until Dan pulls him off.
You wanna hang me in the morning?
Butterfield suggests they bury Tucker, but McElroy refuses because they don't have time. They secure Wade and ride out again. The next morning, the Marshal's wagon carrying the decoy is intercepted by Wade's gang. Thinking their boss is inside, Charlie Prince nearly gets shot by the man hiding in the coach. They douse the wagon in kerosene and set it on fire. The terrified man inside confesses that Wade is being taken to contention to catch the train to Yuma. Once they have what they need, Charlie walks away. One of the gang members warns that contention is 80 miles in the other direction and their horses might not make it. He suggests they forget Wade since he got himself caught. Charlie takes offense, reminding him of everything Wade has done for them.
You think you could do a better job leading this group?
Maybe.
Charlie hits him hard and angrily declares that they're going to contention for Wade. Meanwhile, Wade's captors spot the gang approaching from a distance. Evans suggests a shortcut through Apache territory. Butterfield hesitates, and Wade warns that the Apaches there are brutal and love to kill. McElroy says they'll take the risk. As they ride through, Dan asks Wade why he killed Tucker.
Why not me?
Well, Tucker took my horse. Did you like him, Dan?
No.
Told me you burnt down your barn.
He was an ass. But wishing him dead and killing him are two different things.
Your conscience is sensitive, Dan. I don't think it's my favorite part of you.
McElroy tells Wade to talk to him instead, but Wade mocks him, bringing up how McElroy once led a massacre against Apache women and children. McElroy insults Wade's mother in response, and Wade, still cuffed, tackles him off his horse. He manages to grab McElroy's gun, aims it at the group, and orders Dan to disarm.
Mr. Butterfield. Even bad men love their mamas.
Then he throws McElroy off a cliff and declares the job over, telling everyone to go home. At that moment, William appears behind Wade and orders him to drop the gun.
I don't think you're gonna shoot a man you admire in the back of the head, boy.
Dan rushes to disarm Wade while William covers him. That night, as the group rests, Wade watches William shuffle cards like a pro. He asks if William has ever been to Dodge City. William says no, so Wade describes it. A place where a man with money can get whatever he wants, including any woman he desires. He says he first went there when he was William's age. Dan cuts in,
Stop talking to him.
asking how many people he's killed since then. When Wade asks to relieve himself, Dan escorts him. Wade mentions he thought William would actually shoot him earlier because he saw something wild in his eyes. Dan quickly says his son is nothing like him. Suddenly, Wade drags him down after spotting Apache warriors in the distance, and seconds later, gunfire erupts from the hills. Dan is hit in the leg. William rushes to help, and together with Wade, they drag Dan to cover. Wade grabs Dan's gun, circles around and ambushes the Apaches, taking them all out. When he returns, he demands the key to his cuffs. Instead, Dan tosses it away into the grass. Enraged, Wade knocks him out cold. When Dan wakes up, the others tell him Wade has escaped and taken their horses. Dan guesses he'll be looking for someone to remove his cuffs.
We're going after him?
There ain't no reward for getting him halfway to that train, is there?
Wade eventually rides into a Chinese railroad camp, but the foreman, Bowles, spots him immediately. Wade slips into a worker's tent and asks for help removing the cuffs, but Bowles and his men surround the tent, shouting for him to surrender. Soon after, Dan and the others arrive at the camp. They recognize their horses and approach, only to find Wade tied to a pole, being tortured by Bowles and his men. Butterfield recognizes Bowles since they both work for the railroad.
Mr. Butterfield, all finished in Bisbee?
He tries to claim Wade as his prisoner.
That's my prisoner.
But Bowles refuses. He tells them that years ago, Wade murdered his younger brother right before his eyes. Wade mocks the memory, and they torture him again. Dan steps in, saying there's a reward on Wade's head, but Bowles doesn't care. Tension rises as both sides refuse to give him up. Dan notices Potter reaching for a shovel, ready to attack, and Butterfield prepares to fight as well. Suddenly, Potter swings the shovel and attacks one of Bowles' men. Chaos erupts, and a gunfight breaks out. The group mounts up and rides off as Bowles' men chase them. Potter is shot, and William holds him steady on the horse as they flee. Wade throws an explosive he'd taken earlier, and Dan shoots it, causing a massive blast that blocks the tunnel behind them. They finally escape.
Did we get away?
Yeah, Doc, we did. Thanks to you.
But Potter doesn't make it. He dies moments later. Soon, Dan and the others arrive in the town of Contention. Butterfield goes ahead to book a hotel. Dan tells William to stay outside and keep watch for Wade's gang. Inside, he and Butterfield take Wade to the bridal suite Butterfield reserved.
Hope you don't mind, it's all ahead.
From the window, they notice dark rain clouds gathering over Bisbee. Wade smirks and asks Dan if he still needs that $200 reward now that the rain is finally coming back, but Dan shrugs him off. Butterfield says he'll go fetch the town marshal and leaves. Meanwhile, Wade's gang arrives at the railroad construction camp. There, they meet Bowles and his men. Charlie Prince asks if they've seen a group escorting Ben Wade. The men admit they were chasing them earlier, and Charlie notices Wade's gun hanging on one of them. When he realizes they're not lawmen, he draws his pistols and shoots all of them dead.
I hate posses.
Back in Contention, Wade keeps teasing Dan about the $200. Dan admits the drought ruined his ranch and left him deep in debt. Wade offers to double his pay if he lets him go.
Just lay down your gun and let me walk out the door. It's worth $400 to me.
But Dan refuses. Wade raises the offer to $1,000, his full share from the Bisbee robbery, and says he'll even pay in cash. He tries to tempt Dan, listing all he could buy with that money. But Dan says,
You tell me, Wade, how would I count for that amount of money? What would I tell people when I spend it? That you got the jump on me, you escaped, and somehow I got a fortune. No. How dumb you think people are?
Nobody needs to know.
You know what? Would you do me a favor? Don't talk to me for a while.
You mean we're still not friends?
No, we're not.
Moments later, Butterfield returns with help. Marshal Will Doan and 2 deputies. Doan promises to escort Wade to the train, and Butterfield agrees to go with them, making 5 in total. Wade smirks, saying that still won't be enough. Outside, William spots Wade's gang riding into town and rushes to warn his father. From the window, they count 7 armed riders approaching. Marshal Doan heads downstairs to position his men at the entrance, then returns upstairs. What they don't realize is that the hotel clerk secretly signals to Charlie Prince that Wade is inside. Charlie calls up to Wade, asking if he's all right. Wade mocks his captors, shouting down that he's fine and just hanging out with his new friends.
Just sitting up here with my 4 new friends.
That's enough.
Charlie tosses Wade his hat.
Thank you, Charlie.
The one he took from the decoy stagecoach. Charlie then steps out into the street and loudly announces to the townspeople that Ben Wade is being taken to Yuma prison.
We will give you 200 cash dollars to any man
who shoots any one of his captors.
Guaranteed 200 cash dollars.
The crowd quickly turns greedy. Men rush for their rifles and take aim at the hotel.
Gotta be 30, 40 more guns out there now.
Seeing this, Marshal Doan loses his nerve. He says he won't die for someone else's cause and decides to walk away, despite Butterfield's desperate pleas and offers of more money. Doan and his men surrender, stepping outside with their guns raised. The moment they drop them, Charlie and the gang open fire, gunning them all down. Inside, Wade warns Dan that Butterfield will abandon him next because no one wants to die for nothing. He tells Dan he doesn't need to be a hero and risk both his and his son's lives. William begs Wade to call off his men, saying he knows there's still some good in him.
Call him off.
Why should I?
Because you're not all bad.
Yes, I am.
You saved us from those Indians.
I saved myself.
You got us through the tunnels. You helped us get away.
If I'd had a gun in them tunnels, I would have used it on you.
I don't believe you.
Kid, I wouldn't last 5 minutes leading an outfit like that if I wasn't as rotten as hell.
Just then, Butterfield returns, and as Wade predicted, he tells Dan he's out.
I can't do it, Dan. And if I can't do it, you shouldn't do it either. If you think you have an obligation to me or to the railroad, I assure you, you do not. I am releasing you.
It's just you left, Dan. Just you and your boy.
Maybe he's right, Pa. Maybe we should go home.
Well, what did Doc Potter give his life for, William? McElroy.
I'll pay you the 200, Dan, right now. And you can walk away.
That's what the government gave me for my leg. $198.36. And the funny thing is that when you think about it, which I have been lately, was they weren't paying me to walk away. They were paying me so they could walk away.
Before leaving, Dan makes a deal with Butterfield. Once Wade is on that train, he wants Hollander and his men off his land for good, access to water restored, and $1,000 in cash delivered to his wife.
I can deliver that. Just get him on the train.
He also instructs Butterfield to hide with William until it's over.
You're gonna hold up in a room across the hall. You're gonna wait until we leave.
Then get him home safely. William doesn't want to leave, but Dan gives him his military medal, telling him to give it to his mother.
And you just remember, remember that your old man walked Ben Wade to that station when nobody else would.
Witnessing all this, Ben Wade begins to respect Dan for his strength and determination. After Butterfield and William leave, Dan sits waiting anxiously for the train. Wade sketches quietly in a Bible. He recalls how, as a boy, his mother once made him read the Bible cover to cover at the train station while she went to buy their train tickets, but she never came back. Dan says nothing, then finally stands and says it's time. He sneaks Wade out through the back, but the streets are crawling with armed townsmen. The moment they step outside, bullets fly. A fierce gunfight erupts as Dan drags Wade through alleys, trying to reach the station. Against all odds, he avoids every bullet. When they're cornered, Wade demands to know Dan's plan. Suddenly, Charlie Prince spots the townsmen shooting at Wade.
Hey! Not the black hat!
And guns them down himself, clearing a path for the two to run. They duck into a small stable, not realizing gunmen are waiting inside. Shots ring out, and Wade is grazed before Dan kills the attackers. Fed up, Wade says he's done and won't go any further. When Dan tries to push him, Wade slams him to the ground and tells him to stop playing the hero. His son isn't even watching anymore.
Charlie Prince!
Boss!
As Wade calls out to his men to hold their fire, Dan lunges again. Wade easily overpowers him, choking him to the floor. Gasping for breath, Dan confesses that he was never a war hero.
Only battle I seen. We was in retreat. My foot got shot off by one of my own men. You try telling that story to your boy. See how he looks at you then.
Moved, Wade releases him and decides to see this through. They climb onto the rooftops and sprint toward the station like brothers in arms, as Wade's gang rains bullets down on Dan.
You make this?
Meanwhile, William discovers the drawing Wade made of his father in the hotel Bible. Realizing what's happening, he breaks away from Butterfield and runs toward the gunfire. Back in town, Dan and Wade are still being chased by Wade's men. They finally make it to the station, but Charlie spots them and shoots Dan in the leg. Wade drags him inside. Dan asks the station master for the time. It's already 3:15. The train is running late.
Goddamn trains. Never can rely on them, huh?
Outside, the gang surrounds the building and keeps firing, while Charlie sneaks through a cattle corral to flank them. Inside, Dan explains to Wade why he never moved his family off their dry, dying land. His youngest son has tuberculosis, and the doctor said he needs the desert air to survive.
Why are you telling me this?
I don't know. I guess I just wanted you to know that I ain't stubborn. You said I was stubborn for keeping my family on a dime ranch.
Well, as long as we're making confessions. I've been to Yuma prison before. Twice. Escaped twice, too.
Then, the train whistle blows. As they prepare to make a final run for it, Charlie opens fire from the cattle corral. To save his father, William releases the cattle, sending them stampeding through and trampling Charlie. The same trick he saw Ben Wade use at the very beginning of their story. Dan and Wade seize the moment and run for the train. Dan finally pushes Wade aboard. Wade looks at him and says softly, "You did it." Before he can say more, Charlie recovers and opens fire, riddling Dan with bullets. Dan collapses, mortally wounded, as William watches in horror. Enraged, Wade steps off the train. Charlie compliments Dan for being,
For a one-leg rancher, he's one tough son of a...
then hands Wade his gun back, a fatal mistake. But when Wade doesn't leave, Charlie realizes Dan has become more than just some one-legged rancher to him. Without hesitation, Wade shoots Charlie dead, then kills every member of his gang in seconds. He finishes Charlie with one final shot to the heart. William rushes to his father's side and whispers to his dying father that he did it. He got Ben Wade on the train. Grief-stricken, William raises his gun at Wade, but after a tense moment, lowers it. Wade silently boards the train on his own. As the train pulls away, he whistles, and his horse gallops after it into the distance.